Thank you all for coming. I wanted to sort of have a little introduction to why this panel was put together and an intro to the four amazing people we've got here today. So, do you ever feel like in our industry it's getting bigger and bigger? That's probably because it is. New statistics report across the country there's approximately 10,800 architecture, engineering and planning businesses in Australia. So basically that is, put in another way, that's one property professional services firm or business to every 2,200 Australians. The market is saturated, leading firms to compete fiercely for exposure, projects and ultimately success. Which of course leads to the question, what does it take to succeed in today's fast-moving, hyper-competitive industry? As someone who's run my own firm, Siren Design, for 14 years now, this is a question I have tangled with for years. And it's close to my heart. Over the years, I've learned a thing or two about what it takes to still love my design profession and still be a designer, but also to build a business. I've developed the survival skills to navigate our industry, and so have the four people here today. We're coming together from completely different backgrounds and different parts of the design and construction space to talk about our experiences and how they've shaped our careers. All four of our panellists today are design entrepreneurs who've built successful businesses in their own unique ways. All of us understand that while success in our industry is certainly about passion and raw talent, it's also about business, and it's about all the skills, knowledge and difficulties that go with that. I hope you come away from today's session inspired to build your own practice or improve your current one, or simply to sharpen your business skills. Whatever it is, I hope that today's session gives you the courage and the knowledge to pull the trigger, because design is business. It's serious business. So today I'd like to welcome Peter Marix-Evans, here to my left. How many steps does it take to go from a carpenter to the CEO of one of Australia's largest fit-out and refurbishment providers? For Peter, the answer is many, but all of the steps along the way have been worth it. The CEO of Shape Australia, which has an annual turnover of more than $600 million, Peter spent nearly 30 decades?
Three.
Yes, 3 decades.
I just look old.
This industry will do that to you, Pete.
30 years, 3 decades, yes. Working at all levels across the government and private sectors of the design and construction industry, and developing a logical, strategic approach to project delivery. A self-described problem solver, Peter puts his success as a design entrepreneur down to hard work, positive attitude, and a partnership approach to project delivery. All the things that I'm sure you'll hear today. Please welcome Peter. And our beautiful Melinda here. So Melinda describes herself as a reluctant design entrepreneur. It sounds like an oxymoron, because it is. An apparent contradiction that speaks to the complexities and breadth of Melinda's experience and career path. Following a start in retail where she focused on experiential strategies for brand and customers, she spent 20 years as an associate at Gaia before stepping out to launch the Studio Collaborative just 1 year ago. The Studio Collaborative is a testament to Melinda's tenacity and to the power of putting people at the heart of your business. It's also a shining example of how passion, proactivity and strong relationships can overcome any unexpected challenge, even when the unexpected challenge is starting a business itself. Please welcome Melinda. Next we have Jason Varker-Miles. For Aston Consulting Managing Director, leadership is about inclusion and placing yourself in the thick of the action. Over the years, I've had the unique pleasure of watching Jason lead various companies through the transition from startup to publicly listed powerhouse, and seen firsthand his natural talent for leading and growing successful businesses. A dear friend of mine, both in and out of the boardroom, Jason is an entrepreneur in the truest sense of the word. A quick thinker and a fast talker who takes the time to get to know each and every one of his clients and develop tailored, effective solutions to their problems. What's more, he's final proof that the stereotype of engineers as straight and narrow sticklers couldn't be further from the truth. Please welcome Jason.
Thank you.
And finally, but certainly not least, we've got Troy Uleman. So Troy will tell you, getting to the top of your field isn't just about ensuring your own success. It's also about supporting and nurturing the success of others. Since cutting his teeth in the Pritzker Prize-winning Renzo Piano building workshop, Troy has had a career full of highlights that includes roles at Hassel and Merverk. He's had his own firm, Building Studio, where I first met you. His recent directorship at PTW and new current role leading John McAslan and Partners. He's also worked with design heavyweights Foster and Partners, Roger Sturck-Harbour and Partners and John Wardle Architects. Troy's drive and expertise on the drawing board is impressive. However, he also has for years been actively involved in educating and in mentoring the next generation of designers and design entrepreneurs within all the firms that he's led. Through the AIA, also Sydney University, University of New South Wales, UTS and the Newcastle University. He recently represented PTW as one of the AIA's Champion of Change. Please welcome Troy. Okay, so I'm going to try and get off this stool without falling over, as I did before. I was a little concerned that I didn't really know any of your backgrounds. We have a load of topics. None of the panellists have been given any questions. I just put out a whole load of topics that I think might be of interest to you all. But I really need to find out some stats for you guys. So I think the first thing first, if everyone could put their hand up if they are in the professional services industry. I'd say that's about 40. All right. Okay. I want you to put your hand up, unless you work at Siren, if you're thinking about setting up your own business or going out on your own. Keep them down. So, 10. And if your boss isn't in the room, I should say. And then, who has their own business? Do you reckon that's about the same as the last lot? Yeah, we'll go 10. And then, out of you guys, how many of you have partners, business partners? Oh, okay. I'm going to guess that's 8. I know I'm guessing, but yeah. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to get a little idea of, obviously, where we should go. So we're going to actually do some questions and have a discussion now. Halfway through, there'll be a sign. I'd like to open it up to the floor for you guys to ask some questions halfway through, because now it's quite a long time to sit and listen to us. And that will guide the second half of the session, and then we can do some more questions at the end. So, who gets the first question? So my first topic is why. For me, why did I start my first business? I never really thought about owning my own business. It was very much an opportunity to do more. I wanted a space plan. I wanted to go to work every day and work with people that I loved and loved me. And my mother always said, if you're going to work for the rest of your life, you might as well do something that you love. So I think the first question really for Melinda, and I don't want to pick on you, but as the newest business owner, 1 year, I think it's 1 year next week, it was a big leap for you going from 20 years, I think, at the last firm to actually stepping out on your own. Yeah. What was the motivator for you?
I think just probably over the years getting so much clarity working on a number of different projects with different people, you tend to get a lot of clarity, as you would appreciate, on the type of environment that you need to create to do really good work. And I think it was not about I want my own business, it was more around that was really the only compelling offer. I knew that in order to nurture the people that I cared most about and to have a team, because teaming is everything, you're nothing without the people around you. And I'm certainly a very collaborative worker. I think to nurture them and to keep them inspired, you have to create an environment. I think when I was working in a larger firm, I found it increasingly difficult to do that. We were kind of trying to create a little microcosm. And in a way, I just thought, let's just pull it out, pluck it out, and we're doing that now. So we were very fortunate, I have to say, because we had a client that almost insisted that we keep working with them. So we have had a very smooth run, and that's coming to an end soon, and we've got to stand on our own 2 feet. So, yeah, want of a better offer, I guess.
And I suppose also, Troy, for yourself, obviously you're moving from one directorship to your next big challenge. Yeah, and why for you is that going? What's driving you to keep pursuing? And as I mentioned earlier, Troy's had his own business. He's pretty much done the full gamut.
Yeah, it seems really unsettling, doesn't it? I guess for me, I tried my own practice, a smaller practice. We grew to about 24 people before we realised that we needed big practice kind of systems to get to that scale. And I always talk about this sort of death zone. You know, if you're climbing Mount Everest, there's this place between the top and the bottom where many people don't quite make it, and we referred to that as the death zone in our little practice.
It's usually about between 12 staff and 24.
Yes.
Would you say?
Yes, I would say. It's where you get those problems of scale, and we weren't able to scale quickly enough. But also, I've always enjoyed personally working as an architect, working on large projects. So I always like the big challenge, dealing with a lot of multi-headed clients, so there's sort of complex problems. I really, really enjoy that. And to do that, you need lots of people, because you do need the collaboration that people take to work on those large projects, because you need lots of people, lots of time. And I find that helping nurture and support those people, get people and move them through the process, that's actually something I enjoy. As much as the design aspect of things and making amazing projects and satisfying clients really well, I actually really enjoy that process of helping people move through the industry.
And so this brings me to you, Jason. So you've obviously started an engineering firm, sold it to a publicly listed, worked in the publicly listed huge firm, sold out, started another one, and the discussion around size that, you know, I've heard you say many times, well, I'm not having any more staff than this number, and I still think you feel very passionate about that.
Yeah, I do actually. So we talk about the death zone. There's also the zone where you just get too big. So I use my experience. When I had my first business, we had about 120 staff. And at 120 staff, you're saying yes to a lot of things you should say no to, because you've got to keep that machine fed. Second time round, I've got 40 staff, which probably still sounds like a daunting number to people who are starting out for the first time. But at 40 staff, what makes me successful now is what I say no to, not what I say yes to. I can pick and choose a whole lot more successfully. And when we go into business, we do it for a lot of reasons. But essentially, we all want to make money. That's why people go into business. Or that's why you try and start a business within an organisation you're working in, like Troy's doing. So we all want to make sure we capitalise the returns. Financially, I do better now with 40 staff than I did with 120 staff. So size is really important, but equally it also depends on the industry you're in. So you look at something like Peter's business, where he has to do a large number of projects and he's doing jobs that have got $20 or $30 million turnovers. 100 staff probably isn't big enough to be sustainable in his business. But professional services, be very careful about where you stop and just what size you get to, because you don't need to be the biggest to be the most successful. And I've got a better quality of life now, because again, we go into business for a lot of reasons. Anyone who starts a business will tell you they're doing it, 1, for the money, 2, for the quality of life, 3, they're sick of their boss, 4, they want to spend more time with the dog. So having a smaller business means you're spending less time sorting out a lot of the issues you've got when you're big. So if you can make as much money with 40 staff as you do with 110, I know which one I prefer.
And Peter, you guys obviously are massive, national, but you work, I mean, a huge proportion of your turnover or your fees, we'd be spending a lot of money on professional services a year. You work with small firms, one-man bands, large firms. What is your thought process around when you're choosing what professional services firms or architectural firms or design firms to work for? Does size matter?
I think definitely size matters. I'll go on the record for saying that proudly.
See, I left that alone.
Yeah, sorry, I had to jump in. For us, and the beauty of being able to select different designers and large, small. It's actually about the cultural fit with any of our clients. So I always talk to a client and when they say which designer should I use, which consultants, and in fact which builder, I pretty much advise them that get to know the people that are out there and choose someone based on the relationship and the cultural fit. Obviously the skill and capability needs to be there, but typically if you've got the right partner, they can actually access, there's plenty of small firms that can team up and do collaborative works, and so they can actually team up with the right people, but the cultural fit is by far the most important part of any aspect of that, and I think that goes right through business in general.
Well, I had a really interesting conversation with you, Melinda, the other day around your business, and how many staff have you got at 12?
We're 8.
8.
But we don't want to get more than 12.
They don't want any more than 12. But we were discussing quite interestingly around the whole tech startup culture and how maybe 10 years ago, big corporate brands would feel very uncomfortable working with a sole trader or a small firm, but you feel it's changed.
I do feel it's changed, and to your point around, size of projects, I know when I was working at Gaia and we were doing 50,000 square metres at Barangaroo, it really was only 5 to 6 people doing that project. The machine behind it when you need to document was there, but the brains trust was quite small. So I naively would like to think that the size didn't preclude us from doing certain things because exactly that. We have a large corporate that I reckon 5-10 years ago nobody would have gone near us. We did have to, most of us have a very strong reputation within the business, so it's not a long shot. They know what they're getting, but still the fact that we've got, we don't have books more than 1 year old, we're surprised that people are taking that leap. And I do think it is because it's a little bit cool to nestle up with a startup, and a lot of, your big brands are starting to do that now, and I think they are. So it's great timing if you are looking to start up. I think there is an appetite to take a risk if you've got, as you say, the cultural alignment and the passion and determination. And I do think you'd be naive if you didn't think you had to have a really strong reputation in the business to underpin it. So.
I think one of the things I found as well within professional services is we're not selling a widget, we're not selling this glass. So we're not saying it's the best glass, it's all about the people. Irrespective of whether you're the director or you're the most junior person, people want to engage with the right people. And one thing I found really refreshing when I first started my business 20 years ago, I was 24 at the stage, and I thought no one's going to take me seriously. But people will judge you on your ability, not your age and not the size of your business. When you're going out to try and pitch for a project, if you've got a set of skills that they're looking for, they'll give you a go.
Okay, so talking about this, setting up a business, in terms of qualifications, understanding how a business works. I mean, Melinda, how did you make the decision?
A lot of Google.
A lot of Google. I mean, I'm not qualified pretty much in anything, but I've just had to learn as I go. But then I do now study and I try and, there's a whole lot of stuff I've had to learn. And
I think what's overwhelmed me is how much people are willing to jump in and pitch in and give you advice, whether you want it or not. You get advice from everybody. But you can pick and choose and find your way through. So, I don't know that you have to have formal qualifications. I do take your point around scale, because we naively started and thought there might be 5 of us, and we were already running into the fact that we've got 2 Louises, but our email address is just Louise. So it's like, those little things when you're setting up, if you don't know where it's going to, the infrastructure, I think you need to keep in your mind that flexibility, because we made some decisions early on that probably we would have done differently if we knew we were going to leap to 8 quite quickly.
It's interesting, Melinda, your first year, I've just taken a mental note that you said you're not getting beyond 12. I'm going to give Melinda a call at Christmas next year and see how her 27 staff are going.
I won't do it. I'd like to think I'm not going to do it.
This is being videoed.
I think, I know from when I've worked in larger companies, it's very hard to nurture more than 10 to 12 people.
You're dead right.
And for me, it's not about money. It's about it's about loving what you do and going to work and doing it. And the money has to come because you've got mouths to feed, and I have an overwhelming sense of responsibility for the people I have to feed. But I don't feel I could nurture them. You might prove me wrong, but I don't feel like...
You might prove me wrong.
I hope I do.
So going back to that, so Peter, carpenter to CEO, what kind of study? How did were you always thinking one day I'm gonna be the CEO of a $600 million construction company, and have educated yourself as you go on how to lead and run a business?
No, definitely not. I was asked to leave school in year 11 because I had differing views with what education looked like to the school that I attended. And at that time I thought, why not go out and become a carpenter and swing a hammer in the sun, and that would be fantastic. So I actually did that and got my trade, but at a point in time during that trade I actually used to have long hair. I was quite a cool looking young man. But I also had that attitude of it'll just come easy, because everything kind of did. And I actually had a sort of a cathartic moment with someone I work with, where they sort of took me behind the sheds and sort of said, look, if you keep on going with this attitude, you're going to amount to nothing, and you'll be a labourer all your life. And I took exception to that and went back to school for 10 years at night and did a whole bunch of different things. But I guess the piece of life advice, or what I took on then, was it doesn't matter what you get given, which project, which part of work you get given, do it to your absolute best, do it as quickly as you can, and then come back and ask for another one. So I guess I adopted that from that point on, and it was actually quite amazing really just how I tend to rise through the ranks, not based on any amazing intelligence, but based on a really good work ethic. And every time you get given a job, it's an opportunity to learn something more. And as you say, the amount of people that, if you ask for help, the help will come, particularly in this industry. It's a very small industry, and I think people do actually want to see other people succeed. So
do you all have mentors? Have you had mentors?
Yes.
I mean, Troy, yeah? And the same one as you had in the beginning, or different one now?
I have a range of mentors that I go to for different experiences. Like they have, some are retired now, but they have had their life experience, and if I see there's something that I'm going through that I might just want to check is okay, or something that I know there's a couple of people I can call to compare answers with.
And so how did they become your mentor? Did you do what I did once and say, will you be my mentor? And they said no. And I didn't know where to go from there.
No, look, I find, so I've worked with some great people, and I keep in touch with some of those people. One of my mentors actually sits in Italy, and I mean, not Renzo, but but occasionally I'll exchange emails with him and just get some ideas mostly about how to manage difficult people and those people issues that you always come across. But basically they're people I've worked with and that I respect and I've come across in my career that I just sort of keep in touch with along the way. And I also mentor myself, and I find that, and that's more of a formal program with the Institute of Architects, but I find there's a two-way aspect to every kind of mentoring, that hopefully I'm giving as much as that person is giving to me.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And so, Jason, I can't even begin to think now, how many years have you had your own business? So 24 to
20 years.
20 years. And you were an electrician when
so
you
I had
started.
pretty much the same journey that Pete did. So I was an electrician, and I was very lucky. I was working for a great big company, and while I didn't have a mentor when I was a junior, I always went and asked. So I was intentional about finding a mentor, whether it was to learn how to terminate a cable or how to overcome a staff issue. I went and specifically found somebody who could answer those questions for me. But same journey, I decided I wanted to make a change, and I just didn't want to really get dirty for the rest of my life, so I thought it'd be a good time for me to make a change and start my own business.
And so partners. So I had a partner at 24 in my first business. And then when we split up, I swore I'd never have another partner again. And now I consequently have 3. And they all work now. But it's a really finite thing. I don't even know how to describe it. I think everybody here will probably be able to share some experience. I will start with you, Jason, because I know you've had a whole different type of everything in terms of partnerships.
Yes, but very cool. So
if you were going to share, what you would do or what you wouldn't do again in picking your partner and how you work together, the high and the lows.
So I'm an advocate for partners. I love having them because I want to go on holidays, and when I'm on holidays, I want somebody who's got the same commitment as I have. I want to be able to grow a business in Melbourne, and I can't be there all the time, so I need to have a partner. So I love having partners. But the 3 things that I look for is somebody who's different to me, whether it's a personality difference, whether it's a technical difference. There's no use having 2 Jasons. So you want to find somebody who is different. Second, and equally as important, an absolute cultural fit. They don't need to be your best mate, but somebody you really actually enjoy being around. And then the third thing that I look for is somebody who's not driven by money. And you'll hear a little bit about money, obviously, today as building business, but money's always got to be the result, not the driver. And I've had partners who've been driven by money, and it's always about how do we make more, what do we screw over here? And that's not a mandate that you really want to be in with business. You really want to make it the driver. But a partner, I'm a big advocate for it. In all businesses I've had, in all the businesses I've got today, I have partners.
I'd recommend they're not actually your best friend.
Yeah,
So Troy, I mean, you've got a unique experience.
Yeah,
I'd love you
in my
to
experience,
share.
I left a large practice to join a partnership with a couple of mates. We still talk occasionally, not as often as we used to, but that partnership really, that friendship, basing a business around friendship was a real struggle, and getting people to talk to each other and really take commitments, because nobody wanted to step on anybody else's toes. And sometimes in business you have to make those difficult, visceral decisions to keep things moving.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. Having a partnership isn't about agreeing all the time. It's a bit like having a marriage, really. And if anybody's married, no, you're not always going to agree, but you're all on the same path. You all want to see the same outcome. And a partnership is also really important, that you're not trying to get one up on people. So once you've made a decision to go a certain way, you go on that journey. Even if it wasn't the way you thought was going to be the right one, you've made that decision and that's where you work towards. Yeah. But I've never been in business with a friend. I've always been in business with partners who I really like. I might go to their house for a barbecue occasionally, and I generally know their kids' names, but they're not exactly the guy who's going to be my best man at the wedding, or the guy who's going to be the godparents to my kids.
And Mel, did you actively choose not to have a partner, or was it?
I don't think I actively chose, because it was terrifying in the beginning, but I did have a couple of discussions with people, and it never eventuated. And in hindsight, it was good that they didn't. So yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. It is a bit lonely sometimes, but I do have a really great team that are as committed, and they feel like partners. So probably there'll come a time that I need to make that shift.
And that's a really good point as well. In one of the businesses I'm involved in at the moment, I picked two really good young guys who were enthusiastic, dynamic, really good at what they did, but they weren't commercial. They hadn't quite got the business side of business. So I went on a 2-year journey with them to mentor them to becoming partners. So after their 2-year mentor program was over, we gave them equity in the business, and they're now partners. So you don't necessarily need to go out and find a partner from the outside world. If there's somebody in your business who's great at 80% of things, and you can teach them the other 20, there's no reason why a partner's not sitting under your nose as well.
So I'm just going to change direction a little bit here. I'd like to hear from Troy and Peter around. Well, there's some very strong arguments here coming from Jason and Melinda on small is best, and within your own companies, how do you compete with these other smaller firms or building companies when you're trying to compete for work, and more importantly, the staff. So how do you build? Do you have to build entrepreneurship within your own firms? How do you? I mean, me personally, every time someone leaves my business, it's like a stab in the heart. It kills every time, and I couldn't imagine how it would feel when you have hundreds of employees. Peter, how do you do it at Shape?
Again, I pretty much with all the stuff I talk about, I go back to the culture. So it really is about the culture of the business. We've got 7 offices around the country, so how to make it feel seamless when you're dealing with us in each of the different regions. You can't do it by having a rule book or a policy. You need all of that corporate governance in the background, but you can only really do it by having the same culture in each state. So it's again, it's about who you choose as leaders of those business, but more importantly, it's about the thread that you weave through that fabric of the business, so that it does feel the same dealing in each individual state. And I guess part of that touches on what Jason said in that when we look at setting up our leadership team, we actually look for people with completely different skill sets, and certainly I surround myself with people that are not like me, because if I wanted my decision, then I wouldn't need to have a leadership team, versus crowdsourcing an answer is always far better. So if you can surround yourself with people that are different to you, that you respect and admire, overlay that with a culture of the business that is built on both respect, but also built on, I guess, shared values. And if you think about a startup business and versus a business that's we've been running 30 years, there's not a lot of difference in as far as both businesses have a or successful businesses anyway, have a very defined view of what success looks like. So if you've got the vision there, then everything else tails behind it, and I guess that probably sets the business up for how you want to establish a business as well.
And Troy?
I think I agree with everything you've said, particularly about culture and the importance of culture in the practice, and how that starts to drive and inform certain decisions, so that you sort of push all of that decision-making process down, so the day-to-day stuff can just happen. And what we try to do, I mean, I recognise that every one of the people I work with is essentially an emerging architect. They're on their own journey, and yes, it hurts. It is a hit to the heart when they leave, but often I'm really proud that people that I've worked with and that I've helped nurture and encourage, that they go off and make their own businesses, and they go off and do their own things, and join other practices, and they're bringing that with them. So you're always part of something bigger. So we always try, in terms of competing with smaller practices and smaller projects, we try to tailor teams to the scale of the project and make sure that people aren't, a large practice can do a small project if it's responding in a way that a small project needs. You can't do a small project if you put 20 people on it, because everyone will be running into each other. So we try to scale the teams to suit the projects as much as anything, and make sure we've got, I think it was something you said, Jason, that you make sure you've got the right people fit with the client. I think that's critically important.
Great, thank you. I think we've just hit the halfway mark, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to open up. If any of you guys have any questions, at least then we can talk more about those sort of topics moving forward. Got one over here. I think there's a microphone coming over. And look, aim and just pick a person. It can be general. You can whoever you want.
Anybody. My name's Kerry. I have my own business as well, but looking to scale. So this is really interesting. But I often hear people talk about those oh shit moments. We go, oh, we've got a cash flow crisis, or we've got a problem here, and how do I get from A to B? Those kind of markers. It's if I can get through this, then we're right for that next stage. Could you talk a bit about those oh shit moments?
Is there anyone in particular on the panel you'd like to hear from?
No.
Anyone?
I think scale, it's important when you do grow, but scale is important for a couple of reasons. One is if you own personal satisfaction, and two, you want to give your staff an opportunity to run. But for me, those oh shit moments were day one. I went, oh shit, I got no salary. So that was the first one. And once I got through that one,
When did that stop?
The day one.
I want to know.
And it was only for a split second, because what I worked out from all of the businesses that I've been involved in through that growth is each time I got close to an oh shit moment, I kind of stopped and worked out what's the solution to what's worrying me. And I think with the businesses, and certainly professional services businesses, the three issues are, I've got too much work. How am I going to deliver it? And I'll come back to that one in a second. Second one is, oh my God, I haven't got enough cash. All of a sudden I've got to pay salaries. Where's that going to come from? And number three is, I've just lost a staff member, and oh my God, am I going to replace them? So the first one is, I've got too much work. Well, that's a good problem to have, but it's a reflection of yourself and your own valuing of the business. So one of the things that, again, I've learnt second time round in engineering that I missed the first time is, if you've got too much work on, way too much work on, you're too cheap. You're out there doing 100% of your capacity, 110% of your capacity for too little money. Put your price up a little bit. Put your price up, I'm saying double your price, but do less work for more money. Value yourself. Because one of the things that we do in professional services is we treat ourselves like a commodity. He'll do it for $10, oh, well, then I'll drop my fee to $9. Well, I'll drop mine to $8. And that's a real problem in our industry. Peter and I were talking about it before. This is the best our segment's ever been. Don't undervalue what you do. Sell value, not hours. Because we are professional service and we try and sell hours. So the first thing is, when you've got an oh shit moment, stop and look at what's causing it and try and work out what the solution is. Too much work, you're too cheap. Fix it up a little bit, or you're doing things wrong around the thing. Second one is, what was my second one I was just telling you? Not enough, not cash flow. Cash flow is a real problem. So one bit of advice I'll give you on cash flow is, never have, and again it's harder when you're a smaller business, but never have more than 40% of your revenue from one source. If you've got one source, and that one source either A, dries up, and you've got all these staff supporting it, or they're slow at paying, you're in all sorts of trouble. So try and diversify your client base as much as possible to give you as much exposure across it. But don't let your position get into a bad one to start with. So cash flow is manageable. I tell people I got 7-day terms. You're never going to get paid in our industry in 7 days, but at 14 days,
we're hounding them. At 21 days, we're stalking them. At 30 days, they're calling the police. So have a process for getting paid, and no, you don't wait until 30 days to start calling. And other thing is understand how your clients run their financial systems. We spend a lot of time saying, how do you run your financial systems? Well, if you get your invoice in by the 14th of the month, you'll get paid by the 30th of the next month. Well, I know that's 45 days, but I know if I miss that 14th of the month, it goes across to the following 30 days. So cash flow is about understanding your clients and stalking them, essentially. So really starting to work that out and putting some systems in place. We've got all these great tools these days like Xero, and most people in this room who've got little businesses are probably running on Xero or an MYOB online system. The tools there are great to tell your clients, you haven't paid me, pay me. And then just get to know to call them. So it's a cash flow. Have you got any other little oh shit moments that you're facing?
Sometimes there's the other alternative. Oh shit, where's the next job coming from? At the moment, we're like, there's cranes in the air, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But there are times where it's not like 2006, 2000, 2007,
Yeah.
and that time is coming. So preparing for not as many jobs coming.
Again, I don't want to dominate the panel, but I'll just let you, my little tiny bit of advice on that one there is, I have a note in my diary every Wednesday, irrespective of how busy we are, how quiet we are. Every Wednesday morning, I'm calling my clients. Every Wednesday morning, I don't care if I'm just talking about how their kids are going at swing lesson. Every Wednesday morning, I'm staying in touch with people that maybe I haven't got a job on today, but I'm staying in touch with them. But when I need to turn that up, I hit it.
My note's on Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah, you just got to stay in touch.
I think the other thing is trying to avoid the oh shit moments as well. I know for me, I can't sleep at night if I don't know we've got 3-4 months of healthy forecasts coming up. So it's making those little adjustments, because when you're busy, you forget to do all those things, you forget cash flow, and you have to assume that people will never pay. So getting a bit of buffer, I think, helps sleep at night, but try and avoid the oh shit, so I'm trying.
Yeah,
So I think those points that you make, the projection's obviously very important, understanding what should be coming in, but also the point that you make, understanding how your clients' terms, how their business actually operates, and time your invoices to that so that you know that you can call them or their finance department or whatever it is at the appropriate time. You know that they should have been at that certain point in that process.
Or make sure they know you have a baseball bat in the back of your car.
Yes, with the nails in it, yes.
The oh shit moments for me are actually the key moments where our businesses flourish off that moment. I actually really welcome them. And there's also something here going on with these guys. It's called positive paranoia. As a business owner, I genuinely believe you never stop worrying about your next job. I mean, it never goes away, and I used to really struggle with that and go, why am I, and the staff would, they were always, chill out, mate, we're fine. And somebody was telling me about this thing called positive paranoia, and that's what keeps you more innovative. It drives you, it's okay, and you just live with it and just sort of basically submit to it.
But it doesn't actually stop it. Like, we've been going 30 years, the oh shit moments actually still come, which is cool. But I guess part of the key is actually planning for them. It's like people, how many times do you hear people say Christmas is rushed up? Christmas hasn't rushed up, it's the same time every single year. Same as the end of financial year, like it's actually a lack of planning. So we all know we need cash flow, we all know you need, so it's actually, but part of the key or the reason people don't plan is time poor. So you've actually got to create time for planning. And that way, if you do actually plan, you can, the oh shit moments are still going to come, but they're better prepared. Just on the cash flow, just quickly, an idea that I had, which I'm going to patent. I haven't done yet.
Just going to share it first.
I'll share first, yeah. And maybe some of you already do this, but what I want to start doing on our offer is putting our fee down for our offer, saying this is, our fee's $10,000 if you want to pay us on time, but we're more than happy to offer you excellent interest terms if you want to pay us late. So that your offer is actually based on, well, it's 10 grand for 28 days.
It's afterpay.
But I'm more than happy to enter into a different revenue stream of providing you finance if that's what you so desire. Haven't done it yet, but I think it's a really good. Yeah.
I'm sure you win lots of work
I
though.
ask them in advance because when you're a small guy, I always say, and oftentimes they're pretty good. They go, we can't get this through our system in 30 days, but knowing that I'm 7 days, I was like, well, when can you do it? 30 days? Great, all right, I'll make sure that it's 30 days. But we're not talking 31, we're talking 30. And when you have that agreement up front, it seems to work pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, and we tend to change our terms for certain sectors. So if we're doing maybe retail or hospitality, particularly pub owners, it's everything up front. But the corporates, I don't worry about. I know they'll pay eventually.
It does get easier the older you get within the business as well. It does get a lot easier. Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you very much. That was fantastic. Anyone else would like to take the opportunity to pick these wonderful people's brains?
Or is there any subjects that you're really interested in? Not even just a question, is there a subject that you're...
About generating new leads.
I find there's some clients in particular, particularly in financial sectors, for example, they have a kind of season to new business. So there's a sort of ramp up just before the end of the financial year, and there's another smaller ramp up around Christmas time. So you can sort of focus business development activities or new business activities in those sorts of seasons. But it does come down to making those phone calls, getting in contact with people, staying relevant to them, proving that you have the capability, but in large practice terms, the backing to take on these projects, and that you're going to be deliver that process through all of the planning hurdles and the problems that big projects take.
Who here has BDMs in their business development managers? So everyone, yeah.
I think the other thing, to generate new leads, it's hard to get on the phone and say to somebody, "Hi, it's Jason, I'm an engineer, can I come and see you? I want to pick up your job." And they go, "Well, 15 people are called." So what I do for new leads is I like a warm lead. I don't care if it's just an introduction or something of that nature. So the way I effectively find warm leads is, and I'll use some of the examples here, Mia and I catch up. We're never going to compete. But if I've got an opportunity, I say, "Mia, you should go and see this person," I do the warm introduction. And she's always happy to do the same thing for me. Only 2 days ago, I was with one of Peter's guys, and I've got a large project that I want to get them involved in. And he said, "Oh, well, I've got you. Here's a couple of projects we've got coming up. Can you go and see this client?" So I find my existing relationships give me the best opportunity for warm leads. Cold leads, you can get on the phone all day and you'll have a success rate, and that's important sometimes. But if you can get an introduction, even if the introduction is, "Mia said to give you a call," they've got an interest knowing to Mia, and they'll open the door for you.
Even open tenders and open RFIs, the people who win it are usually the people who have a relationship with that client. So you've got to have those warm leads or those relationships already.
So, I mean, I have quite a unique journey in terms of starting my business, and I pretty much spent 7 years cold calling, so completely opposite. No network here, didn't go to school here, didn't grow up here, didn't know anyone. And I'm very competitive, which might be obvious, but there's days in the studio where you just don't feel like business development. You don't feel like talking to anyone. It took me a few years to work out it's okay. You don't have to do it every day. I picked the day where I felt like I could do it, and I was prepared to take the rejection. So we're talking about cold calling here, I set myself up an Excel worksheet, and every time I saw a name on a billboard with, CBRE above it, or something, I'd put their name on the list. I had no idea who any of these people were. I'd give them a number, so I'd give them a 3. And that means I don't know this person. And I wanted to get all these 3s to 1s. And every time I'd go and I'd do the phone call, try and get the coffee. I wouldn't send an email. I'd always pick up the phone, go see them, and I'd try and, this is my portfolio, this is what we do. And while I've got you, is there anyone else that you know that would be interested in meeting with me? And I'd try and get at least one more name. So it's more on what you're saying that I could add to my list. And I would be able to go back to the office and be able to say, "Oh, so-and-so told me to call you." So I had to generate warm leads from cold leads. And I called it Mia's magic. And it's pretty cheesy, but it actually it meant I always knew it was there. And when I started seeing those holes starting to appear, work coming in, I always had Mia's magic. I could go there and see who's still on a 2, who's still on a 3, how do I get them to a 1? And it's never ending. I think there are things called HubSpot and, Act and things like that, that you can use. But yeah, that's pretty much how I got to know all of Sydney, by just literally having coffees and cold calling anyone who knew anybody.
I don't think there's a shortcut either. I think you just have to be onto it all the time.
The other thing is people feel feel a little bit funny about doing a cold call. I don't want the rejection. Think about how many times you're cold called by Telstra or by the guy trying to sell a Bible or whatever it is they're trying to sell the cold call. You go, no, not interested, mate, sorry, bye. You've forgotten about them 3 seconds after it. Two problems with their cold call. One is they didn't really know you. So if I make a cold call, I try and know what the driver is of the person on the other end. Have they got a project? Have they got a problem? And I try and instantly get to whatever their driver is. And the second thing is if they do tell me to bugger off, who cares? You know, it's a 2-second rejection and I've moved on with it.
I saw there was another hand up somewhere for a subject. Yes.
My question's based around time management, which is, I think, something that in business we all can struggle with at times. And a lot of you in particular, Jason and Troy, manage more than one business. How do you prioritise the time management and when it's, you know, what you need to do at what part of the day? Can you guys kind of elaborate a little bit on how you manage your time?
I personally, I use a kind of triage process. So there are always those things that are urgent and necessary that need to be attended to. I try to make sure I've got good people who can help catch the problems and work through them with me. I'm not, where I sit in a company structure, I'm not hands-on to every problem or solving every issue. But through that process, I always try to also make sure that I have somewhere between half a day to a quarter of a day that isn't problem-solving difficult time. So that's that time where I can actually think about and then come back to solving a problem. So there is, you know, through that process I can prioritise, but I also make sure that on that priority list is extra time that I can use to do things. And sometimes that's going to pick up my son or go cheer him on at a sports carnival or do those sorts of things. But you do need to have that time, I think, is important.
Yeah, I do a few things. First of all, I turn off my emails because we're email traps. We will sit and do emails for 20 hours a day if we can. So on my laptop and on my phone, I have my email notifications turned off and I go and look at them when I want to look at them. So that gives me a lot of time back. The second thing is I make appointments, and I make appointments with myself. We talked about my Wednesday mornings. So this session today has been in my diary for a couple of months. I was always going to turn up. I've got a diary note for Monday morning that I have to do some debt collecting. I'm going to do it. But I will do it for that 1 hour and then I'll move on. So I strategically work out how much time I've got to spend on things and I do it for that time. So I'm not trying to do 7 things at once, which is sporadic. And the last thing, which is really important, is I have what I call best and most effective use of my time. If it's not the best and most effective use of my time, I don't do it. I don't try and do somebody else's job. If somebody's supposed to be doing something and they haven't, I don't try and pick up that slack. I'll help somebody overcome a problem if they've got it, but I'll use my time most effectively. But emails is the big one. Turn your email notifications off and look at them when you want to. Not every time it goes ding or the little envelope turns up at the bottom, just when you want to.
Can I just ask, when do you know as a business owner when to grow? You know, if you're a small business owner, like, how do you make that decision of hiring more people and when to grow? When you know you're managing okay, but you know you could even grow bigger. But it's like, do I? And you've had a few I've had a few bad experiences with, you know, hiring people. So I find that a struggle.
Melinda, you've obviously just been through this. You started with how many? And
2, and it went to 5 and then 8. I don't know that I can answer that effectively because I don't think I've had that problem yet. We've had to grow because we had a certain amount of work. It hasn't been a conscious decision. So yeah, I probably have to...
I think you've answered it right there, though.
Yeah.
It is. It's
but
work.
I think we have always tried to manage our workload and be more discerning, so that we're not, as you mentioned, getting more mouths to feed that maybe aren't the right people. I think if the right person comes along and the right project comes along, we will grow. And I think if 5 fabulous people came along, I might hit my 27. It's just... Yeah, I don't know, but...
I think that's the key, but we've always said that we'll only ever grow commensurate with our ability to hire the right people. Yeah. So there is no point having a market. So market has to be there, and we're going to go through cycles. That'll be up and down, and we need to respond accordingly. But if you ever try and grow with the wrong people, the growth will be futile. So it can only be for the right people, and attracting and retaining is a huge part or a huge handbrake to being able to grow.
Let me ask you a question. Why do you want to grow?
Well, that's a really interesting question you ask, because I keep asking my question back to myself, and maybe I think back to the culture of my family and my parents had a business that was over 100 people, and even though totally different business, and I think, is it because I always think of that subconsciously, or is it because I want to prove something to myself?
You got to grow for the right reasons. I think you got to understand why you want to grow. So Melinda's made a really good point. 12's a great number, and that's where she wants to stop growing. And I know this time around 40. So if you're going to grow, you've got to have a reason to do it. Not just, there can't be an ego that says, I just want to be the biggest business, because I see so many businesses fail as a result of that. It's got to be a reason for it. The reason could be, I want to spend more time doing other things. I want to have some great people in the business. I'm lacking. I can see a gap in my business. I don't have the right XYZ person in that role. I need to get them. So you've got to have the reasons for growth. I don't think you just need to grow for the hell of it. But getting the right person or people, absolutely possible.
Critical.
And if you're not doing that, then it's not worth doing at all. But no reason.
I think also part of this is, and we've all been through it, is when you are growing, so you do hire, and then you're trying to get your clients to work with the person that you've hired or you've grown up into that role, and to actually remove yourself and let them do the work and empower them. And we were having this discussion only the other day, Jason, and I said, whenever I go to pitches, I still get them saying, well, we want you on the job, and I'm like, well, I'm the worst person for this job. You need this person because they can actually do it. And your analogy was hilarious, actually, the chisel one. Can you tell them that what Jason tells them is, you need a hammer, I'm a chisel. You call me when you need me to fix a problem, but they don't use a chisel to try and put the nail in the...
You don't use a sledgehammer to put in a tack. You can use your thumb for that. So when you need some clout, you've got a real serious problem, I'll come and help you. But you don't need me to be putting in the thumb next for you. I've got great staff who are exceptional at that. I'm not real good. I've got clumsy thumbs. Get the right guy doing the right job. But when you've got a problem and you've got to go to court and you need an expert witness, I'm there. But you don't need me for the stuff you think you need me for.
But I would also add that you have to grow in the right kinds of ways. Because when we had our smaller practice, when we were about 12 people, we felt we needed to grow some more people. So we added, I think we got to about 14. But all we were doing was pushing away the work we actually wanted to do ourselves to architects and other designers, which gave us more time for the admin. And we hated the admin. So the very next person, once we realised that, the very next person we employed was an admin person, and that was the best decision we ever made.
That's the most effective use of time. Yeah. You also make a really good question. How do you attract people? I think that's probably a question that everybody who's in business will ask. How do you attract the right people? What do you do? And we live in a very different market these days. Once upon a time, it was just throw some money at them. We'll throw money. Money's not a driver for most people these days. You've got to look at staff and say, what do you want? And we've just employed a guy recently who said, you know what, I want to work from home on Thursdays. That's really important to me. I can't get that where I am. We went, we've got guys that work at home 2 days a week, so come on over. So understanding the driver of people when you interview them is a big part of attracting them. It's not just going to be about the money and the projects. You've got to get the right person who wants to do the right job for you, but what are their personal drivers? No different to a client. Why is a client going to engage you over me? So what are their drivers? Understand their drivers.